guys, welcome to the Sailors World. Today we are here with the new topic that is SOLAS. SOLAS is a convection, okay, and it's a very important topic. So I would suggest that you should not skip in a video. Uh, you can make a note of it if it's required for you. But I've made it in easier language, so I think it will gonna help you to understand a basic idea about SOLAS. Actually, the first question when we listen SOLAS is what is SOLAS? Here, it's what is SOLAS? SOLAS is an international convention for safety of life at sea, 1973. Like this was a convention which came in force. I would not say after a sinking of Titanic ship, but they were planning about this convention. So after the sinking of Titanic ship, they got an idea when they look into the entire incident. They got an idea of what exactly happened. What was the reason for this? Why there was a lifeboat? Why was it not full completely? Why there was shortage of lifeboat when the Titanic sank? Why there was no proper guidelines provided to everyone that how and when the launching should be done and why so many life was lost. So this, because of this made thing. It was a big question mark for everyone. That what was actual reason for this? So when they did the deep study about it, they came to yes, there was a negligence which was caused, and due to which many of the life was lost during Titanic sink. So they got an idea to get this convention in force, and that was SOLAS. What is SOLAS? SOLAS is actually in safety of life at sea. From this SOLAS, a lot of codes has been derived now. So this gives you the complete information about what all things to be done. There are different chapters in this. So let's start. What is SOLAS? It is an international convention for safety of life at sea, introduced in response to Titanic disaster in 1914. An international maritime treaty. What is that exactly? It is an international maritime treaty which required signatory flag state to ensure that ship flagged by them comply with minimum safety standard in construction, equipment and operation. Like this makes that the flag state should make sure that whichever ship is registered under them, under their flag, should comply with minimum safety standard in their construction, in the equipment which are on board, and also then operation. Everything should be carried out safely. Is to be done with the flag state, and they should make sure they have been comply with all this. So there are total 14 chapters. 13 and 14 chapter. These last two chapters were added in 2016 and made mandatory in 2016 and 17. Let's start. So what are the chapters of SOLAS? Chapter 1 is general provision. Chapter 2.1 is construction, subdivision, stability, machinery, electric installation. Chapter 2, part 2, fire prevention, fire detection, fire extinguishers. This gives you information about fire. Chapter 3, life-saving appliances and arrangement, like LSA code came from this. Chapter 4, radio communication, and very important chapter and very knowledgeable chapter. Chapter 5, safety of navigation. I would say all the chapters are important. Chapter 6, carriage of cargoes. What are the criteria to carriage of cargoes? Chapter 7, carriage of dangerous goods. What are the criteria for carrying of dangerous goods? Chapter 8, Nuclear ships, a particular chapter designed for nuclear ships. Chapter 9, management for the safe operation of ship. Chapter 10, safety measure for high speed craft. Chapter 11 has got two parts. Part 1, special measure to enhance maritime safety. Part 2, special measures to enhance maritime security. There's one security over there. I'm sorry. That's part 2 is maritime security. Chapter 12, additional security measure for bulk carrier. Chapter 13, verification of compliance. And Chapter 14, safety measure for ships operating in polar water. So let's see one chapter and basic idea about one chapters. So let's start with it. What is Chapter 1? What does Chapter 1 says? Chapter 1 is general provision. It gives you an information about surveying various type of ship and certifying that they meet the requirement of conversion. Like if there's an flag state, it is an authority for them. It is an they visit the ship and they'll be surveying the ship, and after surveying they'll see what are the deficiency, what are the all the criteria as per the SOLAS has been followed or not. So chapter 1 gives you information about the surveying and providing a certificate to them. Yes, the LSA code has been maintained properly. Yes, it has been. So they give the certification to see they meet the requirement of the convention. Chapter 2, Part 1, constructions. So what is Chapter 2, Part 1 is construction. There is subdivision, stability, machinery and electric installation. The subdivision of the passenger ship into watertight compartment is so that after a damage to its hull, a vessel will remain afloat and stable. So if you see the passenger ship. So in this chapter they are saying the subdivision of a passenger ship into watertight compartment, it should be like that even if the hull is damaged, the vessel should remain afloat and stable. So that should be the subdivision. That's the way it should be constructed. And also it talks about the generator installation and all the thing that will, when you'll go deeply inside the chapter, we'll be studying about it. Chapter 2, fire prevention, fire detection and fire extinguishing. Talks about fire prevention, fire detection and fire extinguishing. Detailed fire safety provision for all ship and specific measure for passenger ship, cargo ship and tanker ships. Divide ships into main and vertical zone, detection of fire. Chapter 3, life-saving appliances and arrangement. What are life-saving appliances and what are arrangement for that? This information is in this chapter 3. So you should remember, if somebody is talking about LSA code, okay, then you should remember where did this code come from. Okay, LSA code came from chapter 3 of SOLAS. Yeah, so when the survey, it's more impressive, So if you don't know the complete detail about it, but yeah, they know where did this code came from, and you have an idea. If you need any information, yes, you'll go into a SOLAS booklet, you'll see for the chapter 3 and you'll get an information about LSA code. So life-saving appliances including requirement for the lifeboat, rescue boat, life jacket, according to the type of ship. It gives you information about what are the requirement for different type of ship to be carrying lifeboat, rescue boat and life jacket. The technical requirement are given in the International Life-Saving Appliances Code, which came from this chapter. Chapter 4, radio communication, very important chapter. GMDSS. What is GMDSS? Global Maritime Distress and Safety Signals. So this chapter gives you information about the communication, radio communication. GMDSS require passenger ship and the cargo ships on international voyage must carry radio equipment like satellite, EPIRB, SAT to improve the chance of rescue in following incidents. Suppose if there is an incident has happened. So It gives you an information that, yeah, when the vessel is engaged into international voyage, yes, as per the SOLAS, they must carry radio equipments like satellite, EPIRB, and SAT. And why are they required for it? Because this will gonna help them for rescue during the time of emergency. So that's all thing in this chapter 4. Let's go to chapter 5. What is chapter 5? Safety of navigation. Identify certain navigation safety which should be provided by contracting government and set provision for operation nature applicable in general to all ships in all voyages. Chapter 6, Carriage of Cargoes. This regulation, what does this talk about? This regulation includes requirement for the stowage and securing of the cargo and cargo unit, such as container. So this will give you information about how the cargo should be stowed, how it should be kept away from some other cargo which can react with that. So this is in this carriage of cargo. This chapter required cargo ship carrying grain must comply with international grain code. If a cargo ship which is carrying grain, they must comply with international grain code. 7. Chapter 7 talks about carriage of dangerous goods. Very important one. International Maritime Goods Code for storage and transportation of dangerous goods. So, in this chapter, it gives the information about the carriage of dangerous goods. This chapter is further divided into 4 parts. What do we need to remember? It's like this chapter, carriage of dangerous goods, is divided into 4 parts. That's part A, part B, part C, and part D. Let's go in detail a bit. What does each part states for? So part A talks about the carriage of dangerous good in packaged form. Part A has got 2 sections, and part A section 2, carriage of dangerous good in solid form in bulk. For this, the code has been derived, that is IMDG code. This code helps and gives the information about different goods which should be carried and the way it should be stored and stored. So part B. Part B talks about carriage of dangerous good in bulk, chemical international bulk chemical code. So what does this part B talks about? It talks about the carriage of dangerous good in bulk chemical. And the code applicable for this part B is IBC code. So we should remember, for part A there is IMDG code, for part B that's IBC code. Likewise for part C it's carriage of dangerous good in gas. So for this the applicable code is IGC code. And part D stands for the carriage of dangerous goods, nuclear package, irradiated and nuclear fuel. So for this the part D is there, and that's for INF code. Let's proceed to chapter 8. What does chapter 8 states for? Chapter 8 is for nuclear ships. This chapter is basically dedicated to the nuclear ships. This gives a basic requirement for nuclear ship and its particular concern with the radiation hazard. Like what are the radiation hazard of the nuclear ship? So this gives the detail about that and gives you the information about the which is useful for nuclear powered ships. So let's proceed to chapter 9, management for the safe operation of ship. This chapter makes mandatory International Safety Management Code, ISM code, which requires safety management system to be followed. So from this chapter the ISM code has been derived. This is a code which is for the ship owner and also for the ship, for the safety of life on board as well as the safety system which should be followed by the owners to maintain the proper safety on board. So all those details are mentioned in this chapter 9. So we should remember the ISM code has been derived from chapter 9. Chapter 10, safety measure for high speed crafts. So chapter 10 is dedicated to high-speed craft. This chapter makes a mandatory HSC code, International Code for Safety of High-Speed Craft. So from this chapter, the code which has been derived is HSC code. So this is a code which gives the safety information for the high-speed craft. Chapter 11, Part 1. Chapter 11 has got two parts. So part 1 talk about the special measures to enhance maritime safety. This chapter clarifies requirement relating to authorization of recognized organization who carry out survey and inspection on behalf of flag administration. It also outlined regulation for the operation of port state control. So what does this chapter do actually? To maintain the proper safety on board, it gives an authorization to recognition organization for what? To carry out the survey on behalf of flag state. Like a vessel is registered with a particular flag, and behalf of that flag administration, it gives an authorization to a recognized organization to carry out the survey that the proper safety measures has been followed on board or not. So that's detailing is in chapter 11 part 1. Now comes the chapter 11 part 2, special measures to enhance maritime security. From this, the very important code which has come down, that is ISPS code. From this chapter, regulation 11 part 2, chapter 11 part 2, regulation 3, code was introduced known as ISPS code, International Ship and Port Facility Security Code. This came, when did this code came? As we all know, when there was an attack in New York World Trade Center, they came to know about like there should be a particular code in which there should be detailed information and a detailed procedure which should be followed by ship and the port so that no any incidents can happen, a breach of security can happen. So this code is actually dedicated to the ship and as well as for the port, at what level of security should be maintained as per the situation in the country. So this all detail comes under ISPS code. So this gives in chapter 11 part 2 talks about this. So let's proceed to chapter 12, additional security measure for bulk carrier. So this chapter talks about what are the additional security measures the bulk carrier should be followed. So what does this chapter talks about? This chapter includes a structural requirement for bulk carrier over 150 meter in length. This is intended to reduce the effect of shear force and bending moment. So what does this chapter says? This chapter says additional what is the structural requirement which should be followed on a bulk carrier which is more than 150 meter during the construction. They should follow what structural requirement for the bulk carrier which is more than 150 mm. So that's information has been given in the chapter 12. And why does that required? Because this will reduce the effect of shear force and bending moments. So let's go to chapter 13, verification of compliance. This chapter became mandatory after 1st January 2016. So this is an latest if you go for an orals or for your interview, they definitely ask this thing if it was the latest amendment which has come down in SOLAS. So you can talk about chapter 13, verification of compliance, which has come down latestly. What does this chapter talks about? And when did it came? It came in 1st January 2016. And it gives information about what is an audit scheme of IMO member state. So it gives information about an audit scheme for all the IMO member state. For example, Canada may audit the UK and the UK may audit Australia and Australia can audit Canada. So it gives you information about an audit scheme. Chapter 14, last chapter, safety measure for ship operating in polar water. This chapter is completely dedicated to the ship which are operating in polar region towards the pole. So this chapter makes it mandatory from 1st January 2017. The introduction and part 1A of International Code for Ship Operating in Polar Water. So the code which has come down from this chapter is the Polar Code. So this is all about the SOLAS from us. I hope it was a bit informative for you, and this will gonna help you in your future interview and your future examination. If anything I missed on or you need anything more from my side, please do comment. So thank you very much for watching. Feedback is really appreciated. Thanks for watching. Please like, share and subscribe. Hope to see you again. Bon voyage. Take care.